You know Croatia for this. Dubrovnik's old town, yacht parties in Var, a sea so blue it doesn't feel real. You've even seen it in Game of Thrones. But no one told you about this. A walled village older than most kingdoms, islands that vanish into fog, towns so untouched they feel like they're waiting for a war that never came. This isn't the Croatia of cruise ships or postcards. This is LuxeUncharted, and these are the 7 unreal places in Croatia no one talks about. We're going in. It rises out of the hills like a scar, a 5-kilometer wall snaking over stone and scrub, older than the idea of nations. This is Ston, where salt once made men kings. And the wall wasn't built to impress, it was built to survive. While the world watched Dubrovnik, this fortress town stood quiet in its shadow, guarding the wealth no one talks about. You won't find tourists here fighting for selfies, just olive groves, echoing courtyards, and battlements that smell like sea and limestone. As the sun begins to fall, climb the ancient stones and walk the spine of what locals call the European Great Wall. From its highest points, the horizon fractures into salt pans, sea, and silence. Sleep beneath the ramparts in a weathered villa, where the windows rattle softly when the wind shifts, and the night feels thick with old stories. Come in September, when the Adriatic cools just enough, and the stone glows gold in the evening light. And next, we follow the coast to a town where the rooftops look like they're floating on the sea. From above, it doesn't look real. Just a swirl of terracotta rooftops, suspended in the Adriatic like a mirage. This is Primošten, a fishing village that once braced for war with nothing but stone walls and salt wind. The sea tried to swallow it. Empires tried to claim it. But the village bent like driftwood, never breaking, never sinking. Today, its cobbled lanes spiral toward a hilltop church, where the bells echo across the waves and time feels strangely paused. At dusk, follow the loop path that circles the peninsula. You'll pass ancient vineyards that nearly touch the shoreline, and coves so quiet the water sounds like breathing. Stay in a stone house inside the old town, where mornings begin not with alarms, but church bells bouncing off the sea. Come in late May, when the Adriatic is warm enough to swim, but the crowds haven't arrived, and the light still feels private. And next, we slip down the coast to a harbour once built for royalty, and now haunted by beauty. If Dubrovnik is a stage, then Cavtat is the echo behind the curtain. Just 30 minutes south, but a lifetime quieter, this harbour town curves like a question mark into the sea. Palm-lined promenades stretch without interruption. The air smells like pine, salt, and something older. Stay in one of the seaside villas tucked behind olive trees. And next, we leave the mainland, heading out across open water to an island that once went completely silent. For 40 years, Vis vanished, not from maps, but from memory. Once a naval base sealed off by the Yugoslav army, this island was hidden from the world for decades. No ferries, no tourists, just silence, soldiers, and the sound of waves crashing against secrets no one was allowed to see. Then one day, it opened. What emerged wasn't a spectacle. It was something quieter. Winding vineyards, pebble coves, abandoned forts being reclaimed by wild time. The main village, also called Vis, still feels like it's waking from a dream. Locals sip coffee slowly, watching the sea as if waiting for something to return. Swim in Stinova Cove, where cliffs close in like a secret. Or follow the dirt path to Tito's cave, where history hides in cold, echoing stone. Stay in a faded guest house overlooking the harbor, where time passes in boats, not minutes. Best time to go? June, when the island blooms before the summer rush, and everything still feels yours. And next, we sail deeper into the Adriatic, to a place even fewer have seen. A sleeping island where darkness and silence are part of the magic. Some islands are quiet. Lastovo listens. Out here, far from the mainland, and even further from memory, the sea is darker, the forest deeper, and the silence almost watchful. This was once a military outpost, then a forgotten speck in the Adriatic. Today, it's one of Croatia's most remote nature parks, a place where the stars still belong to the sky, not the city. Villages here cling to the hills like secrets. Their chimneys curve like periscopes, a centuries-old design said to let families spy on each other without being seen. Hike through pine forests that hum with cicadas. Swim in bays so clear, boats seem to float in the air. And at night, look up. Lastovo has some of the least polluted skies in all of Europe. A cosmic theatre no one bothered to buy a ticket for. Sleep in a stone house that looks like it hasn't changed since the 1800s. And visit in early July, just before the festival lights return, and remind you this place is still very much alive. And next, we step onto an island where myth and nature blur. Some say Odysseus was shipwrecked here, held captive not by force but by beauty. Mljet doesn't shout to be noticed. It whispers, in pine forests that smell like the sea, in saltwater lakes that shimmer like blown glass. 1/3 of the island is a national park, but it doesn't feel protected, it feels offered. Ride a bike through pine canopies that filter the sun like stained glass. Then float across the lakes to an islet monastery, where monks once lived in such deep solitude, their chants became part of the wind. The water here isn't turquoise, it's emerald, obsidian, and sometimes silver, shifting like a mood you can't quite name. Stay in a guest house near the lake, where nights arrive without a single sound. Visit in early September, when the crowds thin and you can hear the island exhale. And next, we leave the islands behind. We go inland, to a village with no coastline, no beaches, and no distractions. You won't hear waves in Grožnjan. You'll hear violins through shutters. This hilltop village in Istria traded the Adriatic for something else, the sound of art blooming in silence. Once nearly abandoned, Grožnjan could have faded like so many others. But instead, it was given a second life, not by tourists, but by painters, sculptors, and musicians who made the village their canvas. Today, its alleys hum with cello rehearsals and scent of oil paints. Ivy drapes over stone galleries. Cats sleep beneath hand-carved doors, walk without tame. Around every corner is a forgotten melody or a window that frames the valley like a painting. Stay in an artist's guest house, where each room feels like a sketch in progress. Mornings here aren't rushed. They unfold like the slow tuning of an old instrument. Come in October, when the music festivals end, and what's left is just Grožnjan breathing quietly in its own rhythm. These weren't just destinations, they were echoes of a time before mass tourism, before cruise ships and queue lines, when Croatia was something you felt, not just photographed. These are the places that don't fight to be found. They wait for the traveler who moves a little slower, who listens before they look, who knows that sometimes the most beautiful part of a journey isn't the view, it's the silence that follows it. This is LuxeUncharted,